everybody. How are you? It's Helen Patterson here from Life Works Well. And I'm really excited about today because I have a special panel and a lot of wonderful guests. And so just really quickly, before we get going, today you're in the right place if you're here to talk about all things HR and the essence of HR and the future of work. So I'm really, really excited. So welcome. And before we get going, I just wanted to acknowledge the lands that I am here on. I'm in Toronto. So it's part of Treaty 13, which is the land of the dish with one spoon. And it's all about sharing. And we are honored to be on this land that was once the land that belonged to the Haudenosaunee, the Wendat peoples, the Anishinaabe, and many other First Nations. So put a note, let me know in the chat where you're coming in from. I really love the circle idea because I believe that's an Indigenous way, and welcoming everyone here today to provide their insights as well. So I'm going to dive in because we have a real full agenda. And if you did sign up, you saw who the guests are, but what I'm going to do is have each of them introduce themselves when they answer one of the questions. So I'm really excited to have Kadine Cooper, Sarah Hussain, Hilda Gan, and Janine Travers with us today. So hello, everybody. We're going to just dive right into all things HR. So I am going to just bear with me for a second. So what I asked the panelists to think about was, what would they describe as the essence of HR? And then right now, what's the number one recommendation you'd make to leaders as a focus right now? And so I'm going to start with Hilda. And if you can, again, Hilda, just briefly introduce yourself. And the reason I'm diving in quickly today is because we have quite a few questions, and this is such an important topic right now. So I'll start with Hilda.
Hi, thanks for having me, Helen, and I'm looking forward to this panel discussion. So my name is Hilda Gan, People Bright Consulting. I'm an HR strategic consultant, and I focus on workplace culture. Love to do training on people skills and team building training. So the essence of HR is really, if you believe that people are the foundation of a successful company, people are its hub. They are the essence. And to me, the essence means understanding the mission, vision, and values, having a main support of that, as well as creating healthy, and I say healthy versus positive, healthy work cultures, because there's going to be positives and negatives in dealing with that. So that to me is the essence. We are at the core of building a strong, engaging place to work and practically live, because you live there for 8 hours at least a day. And what is the key recommendation right now? To me, leaders, business owners, leaders are the key to success. And through that, it's the people leadership skills that they really need to hone on. During these COVID times and with Ukraine situation, people are really, really stressed. And you need managers who understand people management skills to motivate.
Wow, I know that I resonate so much with that, Hilda. Given that Life Works Well, one of our primary missions is to help organizations create those healthy workplaces. And with mental health and everything that's going on right now, there's a lot more focus, which is great. So Janine, I thought I'd put it over to you next.
Sure.
And again, if you want to quickly just introduce yourself. I will have, if Mohini joins later, I'll put, I am going to be sending out a handout that has the guest speaker bios, as well as some resources that we put together to share with you after. So you'll get those in an email a little later as well.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Helen. So Janine Travers, passionate about developing people. I've been doing this for 25 years. Remember the day when I was working in IT outsourcing and we're putting personal computers on people's desks for the first time. So that's going way back. And what empowered me was to get them beyond the AS400 and get them using that system for themselves to build their own development. So I started a long time ago. I've been with CIBC for the last 10 years, focusing on building capability within different portfolios of the bank, like capital markets, wealth management, and commercial banking. So my response is, Hilda, I'm gonna pick up on what you said. The first thing is, for me, the essence of HR from a talent development perspective is being able to ensure that employees can realize their ambitions, their career ambitions. And so what does that mean? It's individual for each one of them, but that's really important for HR to be able to do that. I think today it's important that when I think about what leaders need to focus on right now, you're right, Hilda, it's about developing leaders to be able to take care of their employees. They need to continue to listen to their employees. You know, when COVID hit, all leaders, especially at CIBC, we stopped and we listened and we asked how you're doing. And then for some reason, now that things are sort of going back to sort of a new normal, we've stopped asking. And I don't think we're ready to do that. So leaders need to continue to ask for the well-being of their employees. They also need to connect. We lost a lot of connection over the last 2 years. So it's really important that not only are leaders connecting with their employees, but they're building a community of connection amongst their teams. That's really important as well.
Wow, that resonated. And we didn't, just so everyone knows, we didn't practice any of this. So this is all new to me too, but I love what you said about connection, because that is like one of, again, my true values too, is, you know, bringing that in. And that was really hard over the last few years. So creating these opportunities for dialogue within the organization as well. So I think this has all been great. So I thought next, Sarah, maybe you could answer, and then Kadine, and quickly again, if you could introduce yourselves to everyone here, that would be fantastic. So Sarah, over to you.
Hello, everyone. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Helen. I hope that you all can hear me okay, because we know technicalities are one of the upbringing of everything going on. My name is Sarah Hussain. I've been in HR for a little over 5 years now, mainly focused in the retail fashion space and industry. I specialize in HR consultation, strategy, projects. Lots of projects came about through the pandemic, and one of my key focuses right now is the future of work, or as I like to call it, the now of work. And so all of those answers definitely resonate well with me. And in terms of the essence of HR, I think it's been very transformative just in the last 2 years. And the spotlight has now shifted over to see HR as a business partner function, which is fantastic. To add to some of the tips that, you know, I've been sharing with the leaders in the organization is to just insert a little bit more empathy and move from that transactional style of leadership to a little bit more human approach, and recognizing the importance of work-life blend and making sure that we are all focusing on the well-being of our people. So I don't have much more to add because those answers were lovely and definitely something that I agree with.
Thank you, Sarah. So over to you, Kadine. And my apologies. I tried to put the spotlight on the co-hosts with me. And again, technology is not my friend today. So I put it back to speaker. If you want to put speaker on your Zoom link, you can, it'll highlight the speakers when they're speaking as well. So thanks for pointing that out. So Kadine, over to you.
Sure. Hello, Helen, Hilda, Sarah, and Janine, and all the other amazing guests. Thank you so much, first and foremost, for hosting this, Helen, but also to the attendees that are here as well. You've taken this time out of your lunch hour to kind of join this space with us, and I really appreciate that, because that means that someone's listening that can probably make a difference or influence some decisions in organizations. So that really speaks to me. And where I would kind of take this is, I feel like we've got to take the human back into HR. We've got to build relationships with our employees, and everything that Hilda, Sarah, and Janine said, I just want to echo it. even further, because it's about using some emotional intelligence as well, treating employees like they're human beings and allowing them to bring their entire beings to work. You know, we're not robots. We've invited, you know, our work life into our home space as well. So it's really just being mindful and treating individuals as unique individuals and not using one brush and painting all. Like, for example, my husband's being asked to return back to work. And since since the pandemic, he's been working from home, but his office originally was in Markham, in the city where we live. And now he's being asked to go downtown because the team is being shifted. So is that conducive to him and our lifestyle? Not really. But is he being given a choice, you know, or an option? So really, HR needs to speak to your employees and continue to do check-ins. I think it was Sarah, Virginia was just saying, like, we've got to continue the conversations and build those relationships and connections with our employees to ensure that they're doing okay, especially with, you know, mental health being on the rise. So just to echo what all the other ladies already shared.
Oh, thank you for that. Thank you for that. And I hope everyone can see the speakers now. I don't know why the spotlight wasn't working, but we do our best. Anyway, if you have questions as well, feel free to put them in the chat. But next up, we're going to start with Sarah. And Sarah, if you could just share what you think the greatest opportunities are for HR professionals to increase their influence right now.
Absolutely. Thank you, Helen. And in terms of increasing internal influence, I think it's really important to recognize how much change and instability exists during this climate. So the more certainty that HR professionals can provide, even if it is to just go back and say that we don't have all of the answers right now, but we're quickly working to resolve and strategize the function of HR, is really helpful in getting that internal influence for the department and being up to date on the many changes that are going on, just not even locally, but I think it's super important to check in globally and gain inspiration from kind of what's happening in other regions or how other HR professionals across the border are coming up with creative solutions. The second point that is super valuable in my kind of experiences is to be very flexible and provide options. Just as Kadine just mentioned, it's so important to have tailored approaches and resolutions towards you know, some of the very key problems we're facing right now, and to have more than one solution going, co-create, have those conversations with employees. That really helps in having influence within the decision making for businesses, for sure.
Yeah, that's so true. You know, I think if anything, the last couple of years has really highlighted the importance of the function and the credibility and value of that profession. So I'm really excited for that, having been part of this function and people for quite a few years. So then Hilda, we're just going to have you weigh in.
Sure.
Thanks.
Yeah, to add to that, like, I think it's two things. I mean, we have this great opportunity. For some people who are new to the HR world, everything we've seen in 2 years may have taken some people 10 years to learn all the things that we've had to go through. It's a great opportunity to really be a partner in the business, to have a voice and to be heard. And I think the opportunity for us as HR professionals is to create and build further a trusting relationship. That's with the employees whose perception of us before might have been, you know, to really engage staff through the parties or to terminate. That's the two things they seem to think. But I think that's increased. And then to show the leaders and the business owners that we have a place in the business, to be included at the beginning as they're creating ideas, which is what Sarah was kind of talking to. Really be true business partners. And I think for us as HR professionals, learning and understanding the business side, so that when we're giving HR strategies and solutions, that we understand and weigh the risks and the rewards when we come up with strategies.
Thank you. Thank you. And then Janine, we do have quite a few questions. Again, if there's anything top of mind, feel free to put something in the chat as well. If there's something that comes up that you want to ask any of us.
I just want to reiterate that I really like Sarah's comment about certainty and showing up with confidence. We don't have to have all the answers, but I think having the confidence as well as the courage to say, I'll get back to you, I don't have those answers. But what I've been working on goes back to what Hilda, you were saying, is actually becoming that true trusted advisor for the business. And I think it's important that we are at the table early and we are weighing into their business strategy and we are having those conversations with them. And I think I know for talent development, it's not about training, it's about what skills are we going to build to help you get to your strategy? What's the impact people need to, what do people need to do differently? So the more I know about the business and what's important to them and what their strategy is, the more effective and influential I can be as an HR person at the table. So that's really important.
I love that. I love that. And then later on, Janine, I know you're in a larger company. And so, sometimes, some of us, I've left corporate, but I've been in those large organizations. So, but it's amazing to me how there's still these themes and similar things that come up even regardless of the size of the organization. So yes. Kadine, did you want to add any thoughts as well to that?
I think they spoke very well on it. And I forgot to introduce myself too. So I'm an HR, well, not in HR as much anymore. I still have my foot in it a little bit, but I'm a career transition coach, speaker, and a trainer as well. And the only thing that I would really add is I think it's such a great opportunity for, HR to be that strategic business partner, to really lay the foundation and the footprint within the organizations or the teams that they support. So just again, echoing what has already been shared, this is such an amazing and phenomenal opportunity for HR to really show up.
Yeah, and I love that. And I think it's still interesting that sometimes there's this thought on separation on culture and org development and org psychology and HR, but thinking about a lot of companies have maybe one professional and they're wearing all the hats. And then the larger orgs have that ability to silo, but really it's that throughout the experience, the employee experience. And what is that like, right? So we're going to stay with you, Kadine. Thanks for reintroducing yourselves. I know that we put something in the chat that gives a little bit more background on everybody as well. But so I know your perspective, having been in corporate and then now running your own business, but you work with a lot of companies and individuals. So this question, I'm going to start with you. And so what have you been seeing? What's the number one people challenge that organizations are facing today, or from the employee perspective? So you may have insights from some of your clients as well for that.
I do, definitely. So one of the main things that I'm seeing is a lot of disengagement. A lot of people are they're tapped out, they're burnt out. And so the way that I think employers or, HR is show some appreciation, even if it's virtual. Like I've seen some companies doing amazing at it where they're sending little care packages or just things to let the employees know that we're actually thinking about you and we appreciate you. So just those little small things. But employees want flexibility now. They want flexibility. They want to be seen. They want to be heard. And they're really looking for their employers to support them with that, so the opportunity to work remote or at least 2 or 3 times a day. But again, it goes back to asking them, what do they want? What do they want? Your employees are like your biggest assets in your organization. So it's really important that you tap into who they are. And that's how they're going to show up as their best self as well, too, for your clients, right? So it's a win-win for both. If you can keep your employees happy, they will do backflips for you, right? So from an employee perspective, that's the main thing that I've seen. They want better pay. I think this time has allowed a lot of people to do a lot of introspective thinking. So some people have figured out, I don't know if I really like this company. I don't really like this job, or I don't like the team that I'm working with, or I love it, but these are the changes that I would like to see. Right. So I just recently completed an employee engagement survey for one of my clients. And I think it's important that companies and HR departments are doing that. Do a pulse check. figure out where employees are at now. And maybe before it was done once a year, maybe it needs to be done every 3 months, every 6 months, whatever works for your organization, or, more than just once a year. Super important right now just to check in, because a lot of employees are really disengaged right now.
Well, yeah, that says it all, doesn't it? I mean, and it goes back to connection too. It's not enough to just do that annual performance or, this, not connecting on a personal level daily almost, right? So thank you for that. That was great. And Sarah, what are your thoughts on this?
I definitely agree with you. That was a fantastic answer, Kadine. Like totally exactly what I was thinking as well. And just to add to that, I think the biggest people challenge is retention right now, and it goes back to the company culture as well. We might have all heard about the Great Resignation, the way people realizing what they want in terms of quality of work life. And I think that's been a very big people challenge. And it's not as simple as to go back and offer more compensation, because if one thing we've learned throughout this pandemic is it's really true to the shift in culture that is required. So more flexibility. We know that according to the trends, we have Gen Z and millennials entering the workforce more and more, and we know what they require in order to a retained approach within working for an organization, staying with them as well. So I would consider that as a very high people opportunity to go back for stakeholders to look into their culture and see what is going on over there.
Yeah, and I'm so appreciative of your perspective, Sarah, too. I don't want to give my age away completely, but I've been around for a while. And so, sometimes there's the things that are still happening today that, we in HR have been trying to push organizations to look at. But, we have to take those generational perspectives into play sometimes too, that, newer generations and workers, like, they look at your corporate social responsibility. They look at what you're doing in your community and how you're giving back. And so there's so much, and this flexibility, work from anywhere. So it's such an amazing time to talk about all of these issues. So I know Hilda, you were next on this. So thank you for that, Sarah. I appreciate it.
So, I think we're all building and thinking the same thing. It is about engagement, it is about motivation, and it is about the time that we not only have had a chance to reflect on whether we like the workplace and the work culture, but do we like the work? What is my passion? And so it truly, truly is an employees market right now. And people are leaving, and they're getting more money and finding something hopefully that they love to do. One thing I will add is there is, getting back to the managers, a pivotal role that they can play in enhancing the motivation and the engagement and the desire to be part of the company. And if I can just share 5 words, my concept of rev up, because I think this is a recipe for thinking about how you as a leader can connect with people. And it's treating people with respect, looking at them as equals, valuing who they are. That's the reward part. But then I think the secret sauce is uniqueness. Looking at the uniqueness of people, asking them what they want. Is there a place for them to grow within that organization in that uniqueness and those strengths? Because when they find their uniqueness passionately, they're going to be so much more productive. They're so much more engaged. And then if you can just find it in your organization to tap that potential, that rev up will really help engage, motivate, or help them find a place where they can move on to find their passion and their work. So I'm going to add that because everybody did a good job of sharing the other stuff.
Well, and thank you, because I love your Rev Up program, and the acronym stays with me too. Like I can rhyme it off because it's really so relevant. And in the chat, there's some great stuff happening in the chat. So thanks for Sarah too. And you kind of touched on this whole purpose, and employees want to be part of what this organization's creating, and your values have to align. So Janine, we're going to have you just weigh in quick, and then I'm going to get on to the next question. Again, anyone, thanks for sharing thoughts in the chat. And, a little later on, we'll open up room to have others come out if they have any other questions as well. So Janine, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think what I didn't hear, and I think to me is the biggest elephant in the room, is time. And in the organization that I support, it's always about time and the challenges. Where do I find the time to fit it all in? On the talent development side, we have a sliver of employees' time to develop them. And then I find that employees don't give their personal time up to develop themselves. They almost park themselves at the door to focus on work. So we have really done a good job at CIBC to broaden the definition of learning. And really it's learning every day and learning in the moment. So it could be something as simple as listening to a podcast as you're traveling on the GO train, to jumping into a video and seeing your president do a Q3 financial result. So learning by itself is no longer an event in a classroom. And we've moved away from that. Learning is in different ways and different forms, and we need to just continue to educate our people, our employees, that you could be in a stretch assignment, you could be exposed to a conversation with a leader, but you're learning every moment, and that's the most important thing. So it's just finding that time.
Well, this is perfect. And I'm telling you, everyone, this was not planned. Because the next question, we're going to start with you, Janine, and it's what is the future focus for learning and career development and skills enhancement? So so that just expanding on probably what you've been already talking to. I know this is mainly your lens, so which is fantastic, because this whole employee development and skills enhancement and career movement is really what's important to people.
Yeah, and I'm gonna just do a shout out that I know there's some esteemed colleagues from my former work days that are on this call. So I don't know if I have the exact answer, because I think there's a whole bunch of different views of what those future skills are. But from where I sit, I think the most important skills are the transferable skills, the skills that we can take with us wherever we go. And I find that, all the training that I've done over the last 10 years, it's really focused on those transferable skills, or what we used to call soft skills, which to me are the most difficult skills. So those would be your interpersonal skills. Will be things like how to communicate. To this day, I'm teaching risk professionals on how to present to their team, right? They still talk down at their feet all the time. How to collaborate, how to work as a team member. We are no longer doing that isolated work. We are always doing work, and we're always collaborating with each other. The other skills that we need to build on are those self-management skills. So we see the word resilience seem to come up in the last couple of years, and well-being, be able to manage your own triggers and your emotional quotient, being able to demonstrate self-control. And what we've been focusing on the last couple of years is being able to disrupt your own biases. So when we think about an inclusive culture, we think about inclusion, diversity, how are you showing up today? And can you, do you know what your biases are? And can you park them at the door and be less judgment when you're going into conversations with people? Finally, for the bank in particular, and probably the financial industry, we are adopting technology. We are spending millions of dollars on technology. And so I think digital literacy is really key as a foundational skill for all employees. Being able to use technology, but then leverage technology to have data-driven conversations and data-driven decision-making, I think will be really important. And then for our leaders, I would say the biggest skill for them is to think horizontally. Leaders are very siloed, they work in their groups, and I think those great leaders think beyond and think horizontally about what they're doing and how they're impacting other people.
Wow, this is amazing. There's a lot of chat going on too, and I'm so glad this is recorded because I'm gonna have to go back and listen again, because there's just so much wisdom. And I think I love what you said about the soft skills too, because there's a lot of people that don't use that term, and some people use power skills. Power has a lot of connotation and as well, and I'm a big, if you get to know me, well, I know quite a few people here, but this language is always something that I'm always looking at and taking apart in choice of words. And so, really it's those, capabilities I think Sarah mentioned in the chat. So Kadine, I'd love your perspective on this, because again, I think with having been in HR for 12 years, a lot of recruitment, talent acquisition, but also now the coaching, which, is growing too. So I'd love your perspective on this question. Do you need me to repeat it? Or are you good?
No, I'm okay. I think because I was just listening a lot to what Janine was saying and echo, and I think, Lee and Sarah are chiming in the chats. I think what you said is like bang on. We need to start thinking more horizontally. And I think from a talent acquisition perspective, I think we spend so much time in that space trying to inject talent into an organization before even assessing what we already have in our house and asking the question, what is it that the employees want to learn? Do they want? And we employ individuals like managers, we promote them, but we don't even equip them to be managers or people managers, right? We just say, okay, we're going to promote you into this role, but we're not equipping the ones that we have in-house. And then here we go injecting, additional talent into organizations to almost like fill a gap. But I love the idea of stretch assignments, right? Stretch assignments to ensure that you're encouraging employees to level up their skill sets, right? Give them an opportunity. So many times HR just sits down, they figure out the career trajectory for maybe like the C-suite or the higher level. But what about that younger generation that's coming up too? How are we upskilling, allowing them to level up in their skill sets? So Janine, you were bang on it with everything that you said.
This is a great panel. That's why there's a lot of bright people here. Upskilling and future skilling came up in the chat too, so that's pretty important. And I mean, hey, I'm a fan of continuous growth mindset, continuous, like I loved what you said about everyday learning earlier too. So and then I just think that you have to have fun doing it too. Maybe that should be the number one. Can you have fun?
I was going to say, Helen, the other thing too is I remember when I was in corporate in HR, one of the things that we used to do often was lunch and learns, but I don't know if that's kind of fizzled out lately, but maybe that's something that needs to come back. How can we educate in a fun way our employees and ask them the questions? What do they want from it? Yeah. What are they hoping to get out of it? What would they like to learn? Is there a new trend? We talk about artificial intelligence, like the digital world, like what is it that you can bring forward to your employees that is going to level up their skills, but also impact you as an organization as a whole as well?
Well, and that's the thing, because when we were talking about learning here too, there's different ways that people learn, and there's diversity in people, there's diversity in learning, there's diversity in thought. And so one size doesn't fit all, right? So that's where we have to really expand. I want to have Sarah and then Hilda answer this too, but I'll just really quickly, one of the things, just making sure my order here, but I think Hilda, you were up, and then Sarah, but I did some coffee chat. So similar to the lunch and learn concept, where it was where it was theme based too, and we did get a lot of participation. Sometimes it was heavy because we were doing like white privilege, and we were doing like really, some Indigenous learnings and sort of unpacking everything that's been going on. But we could build some light and fun, and then sometimes it was time for like serious dialogue, right? So it's just trying different things, I think, too. So Hilda, what about you? What are you seeing as far as a future focus for learning and career development and skills?
Yeah, Janine did a wonderful job, and Kadine added to that. What I'll add to it is lifelong learning. We all are lifelong learners. And the things that we feel we're going to need to learn in 5 years, we don't even know what those are yet. So, but you'll always need those, quote, soft-sided skills. You really need to, I think, all of us should be on a lifelong journey of improving ourselves personally. And whether that's your communication skills, your self-awareness of yourself and growing. Whatever you're going to learn, have a mental mindset of continuous learning and build on what you're really good at. It used to be when you had your performance management review, and I call it now performance development review, is that you should focus on the future. Where do you grow from where you are? But it's not to make you a whole person. It's to make the best version of yourself. In other words, look for your strengths and passions and build on those. Don't look for the, well, your weakness is this. Let's take you to a course to improve your communication skills. No, let's find out how you communicate effectively. And that's what I put in the chat. People said disc, but I love fascination. So you need to learn about fascination. And that helps you communicate more confidently, knowing who you are in your space. That's what I'll add to our conversation.
Oh, thanks, Hilda. And I'm going to let Sarah weigh in. And so, I mean, there's a lot of ways of assessments. I personally am not a huge fan of assessments, but I do see that what's interesting is the ones that I've done, and I've done several over my career, there are themes that come out that really are me, that's the part that I find interesting. Marcus Buckingham does a lot of, he was involved with Strength Finders when it first came out. And then he developed a concept called standout, which you look at your two strengths. I did that when I was at ADP. And that's what you're saying. Like, why are we focusing on something that people aren't great at? That's like diversity of team means build those teams that are high performance, strength-based, heart center, right? When you love something and you're great at it, you're gonna excel, right? And that lifts the organization. So, Sarah, what are your thoughts on this? What are you seeing out there too?
Everybody had like fantastic points, so I will keep mine a bit short. But I think that one of the focus areas for the future when it comes to learning in terms of the change that I've witnessed is we're also expanding our topics on the learning side. Like, it's moved away from skills on the job to expand into a more holistic approach of learning how to trust our teams to working remotely, learning how to kind of pause and, reset our mindset. So while learning is going on, a lot of unlearning is also taking place in the ways that we are working, and just kind of targeting subjects, like you mentioned, that might be a little bit heavy, and expanding our learnings just in the workplace, but also outside. And I think that will continue to be the future focus when it comes to learning, just expanding on those topics and moving away from skills to more human approaches and human ways of leading, definitely.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Sarah. This is such an exciting time for me when I hear, this is something I've been on a path for years to try to bring, humanity back into the workplace, and just that, talking about skills like empathy, if you follow Simon Sinek and, many others, and then Brene Brown, like having the ability to be, able to have those conversations and be comfortable about talking about things or holding space, like for managers and what Hilda's work is and others, like it's crucial. And, think about it. We don't learn that. Like I didn't, certainly. So a lot of it's self-awareness. A lot of it is like pursuing my own personal development, but why not offer that through your EAP or your EFAP, right? So things like that. So you're up first for the next question anyway, Sarah. So it's, we've kind of been touching on a lot of this anyway, but it's as far as the top trends you're seeing now that are impacting the future of work, or as you say, or work now. I mean, Josh Berson's work is like, this is the future now, right? So we had it escalated or exacerbated over the last couple of years, but yeah. So what do you think is going to be, we're going to be seeing more of?
I definitely think that remote work is a big one. And it's not only working from home, but we've definitely seen a lot of global mobility programs, global working, and the work from anywhere programs being initiated as a result of the pandemic. And I think that it definitely makes some employers a little bit uncomfortable because, one was adjusting to the remote work from home, and now we're having to accommodate requests that are in other countries and how this impacts our teams and our productivity. So if we want to get ahead, then to have control over the narrative, it's always advised to look into like tax implications that could arise, how a request approval process can be more formal rather than teams kind of just offhand requesting it. And then sometimes I'll be honest, we had team members just working from other countries, and then we kind of caught them and had to learn up and build up a process. So I think it's important as a trend for companies to get ahead of this and maybe activate some research around how this can be managed more effectively, because that's one thing that I definitely can see happening more of as an outcome.
Yeah, that's a big one, right? And this, moving away from standard work weeks and moving to results only focus versus like 9 to 5. Like if you're, if you want to take a 2-hour break in the middle of the day as well too. So there's remote and then there's flexibility as well. So Kadine, what are your thoughts on this as well, trends or what you're seeing that like definitely we need to get ahead of or get ready for?
Definitely employee wellness, I think is a huge one that I'm seeing, with the rise of anxiety and depression. I think it calls for self-care. So employee health care has to increase, and the flexibility comes in there too. So being able to take those with no judgment mental health days, right? Because the stress in the workplace right now is so high. So if there isn't that flexibility to say, I'm going to take this day, and this is the reason why I'm taking the day, I think you're going to see a lot of employees kind of searching for that right company or culture environment that is more accepting and receptive of them taking their health and their well-being and putting that at the forefront. So it's one of the trends I think is key.
Yeah, I mean, it's the number one thing we're always saying: self-care, self-compassion, and then we forget to, I've heard so many times about that oxygen mask first, right? Especially as an HR professional, you're taking in a lot of things as well, but it's time, right? It's time to have organizations support, not just a physical illness or, something like this is real. So thank you for mentioning that. That is a huge one for sure. And next month is Mental Health Awareness Month. It's also Global Wellness and Fitness Month. And so, here we'll be looking at a lot of that. It's kind of part of our DNA too, to make sure that's what Life Works Well is all about too, right? Having wellness always. So thank you for that. And sometimes it's easier said than done, isn't it? So Janine, do you have any thoughts on this? I'm just looking at the time. We're still good. So we don't have to speed talk too much, but but Janine, what are your thoughts on top trends that you're seeing now, and what's coming up in your workplace or what you're seeing in your industry?
What's really top of mind for me is I've got a lot of nieces and nephews hitting the workforce. And so that younger generation, and what I'm seeing is their demand for the work-life balance. It's not a nice to have. This is what's in my life. This is what I want. And that's the organization I'm going to partner with, to the point where one of my son's good friends just secured a 4-day work week as his full-time job. So, that 4-day work week, we kind of hear it buzzing way off in the distance, but it's happening. It's coming to a theater near you. And I think we really need to think about that more.
Ooh, this might open up a can of worms though. What does 4-day mean? Does it mean 40 and 4? Does it mean like only, 5 hours a day? Like anyway, but it's going to be that struggle, right? That you know, the traditional view of like 40 hours, like where did that came from industrial revolution. Like, I mean, the employment standards started because people were working in a different environment and they were being like, you know, really, really overworked physically. And so they had to kind of put these limits. And so now it's like, does this work in the knowledge era,
Yeah.
Right?
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
I originally was thinking we could be talking for at least a couple hours, but we'll have to have a part 2 maybe. So, but Janine, thank you for that, because that whole work-life integration and flexibility and harmony, and I don't think you can get balance necessarily, but all those that, and the, you know, right to turn off, like, you know, right to unplug now with the legislation in Ontario for those watching, or if you're not ready, like it's coming in June, so got to be prepared. So I think then, Hilda, final thoughts on that question. We've got a couple more after that.
I'm impressed how quickly we're getting through this, but I will be short. I think the two trends is, I think employers, the good ones, are starting to get it. We need to invest in our employees, and that means giving them the money to get educated more and more. And education is broad in terms of personal learning and growth, but also work-life balance and stress management, etc. And then I think the other one, and I think that leads to the next question, will be is technology. And artificial intelligence is something that we're, you know, it's a buzzword now and people are learning about it, but you can imagine how freeing IT and artificial intelligence will be as we move forward. So this is a big trend that some of us will have to go kicking and screaming into it, but some of the people are embracing and moving forward, but it's something that will need to happen.
Hey, this is really the universe, but I had no idea when I was preparing for this and how the questions, so somehow it worked out. Maybe there was a method to the way I did this, but the next question goes right into the tech, and we're starting with you, Hilda. But so how are you, now we all have different roles, but how are you leveraging technology in your specific role or your organization? Or in your case, like, what are you seeing
for
in
my clients?
clients?
I attended a session about 3 or 4 years ago, HR and technology, and I thought, okay, I'm going there to open my eyes, and I left there thinking, this is required, this is necessary, and I'm dealing with small to medium-sized employers who are startups. And what I realized then, and more important now, is that there are applications now for small to medium-sized businesses for anything in terms of improving the quality and the efficiency and consistency of work. Whether it's an app for your human resources, for all your staff, for your payroll, etc. So I really think that I am helping and supporting my clients to build that into their budgets, to find a solution. I have an IT background. I spent 4 years of my long career in IT, so I understand the complexity of it. But that's certainly one of the things that I will share from my perspective with the small to medium-sized clients that are really trying to find their HR foundation.
Yeah, and then I'm going to have Sarah weigh in, and I have to say that I've been a resistor for a while, but I'm getting there. I'm getting there, even though despite today, even like it's just, there's a lot. And I mean, this is something that's part of every day now, right? So how do we leverage the technology though? So Sarah, what are you seeing with your clients or in your workplace, the organizations you're supporting?
Absolutely. Technology is a big one. I think we've all had to kind of force ourselves into getting more tech savvy and understanding all the tools and systems. But the biggest opportunity for tech is to leverage how we can enhance our communications and, stay more in touch while we are all remote, while we're missing that human physical presence an element. And I have seen, similar to Hilda, I have seen a lot more applications to lead conferencing and having cool features and breakout rooms, for example, just so people have a little bit more of that intimate setting environment and feel like we're connecting in person, away from the workplace. One thing about technology, though, and this kind of goes back to the right to disconnect, is initiating boundaries. I think a lot of us have our emails on our phones, maybe, and chatting away outside working hours. So I think just as another trend and something to blend technology within your work life is to have rules and laws around data privacy and when to or where to activate access into, the systems and things like that. That's one thing that I noticed, because we're always moving from screen to screen to screen, which is a reality for most of us. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think one of the things that this whole, right to disconnect and unplug, but then it's almost a little bit of a contradiction of work anywhere, anytime. So without those guiding posts and some clear, hey, these are the hours. If you want to work, don't press send till the next morning. There's ways to leverage technology to do that, where you can just have it, I've even used that. So kudos to me, a little tech savvy here and there, but some ways, sometimes, but not always. Kadine, what do you think about this? I mean, gosh, every time I turn around, there's another app or a new tech. So what are your thoughts on how you're using it personally or with the organizations or people that you're supporting?
So personally, systems are like the way to go. It streamlines processes, it makes things easier. I use it in my little small business, and it definitely helps to set me up for success in terms of my day and my structure when I'm sending out communication to clients. But even from the, a client perspective, helping a client set up like Bamboo HR, where they can utilize, employee, it's like self-serve features, right? So employees, especially now that we're living in this kind of digital and remote capacity, they may not have the opportunity to connect and speak to HR right away for everything. So making it easily and accessible for them with frequently asked questions or frequently asked, reports or templates and things that they need, making it just easier for everyone. So definitely it's the way to go. I mean, we can't really run or hide from it. I even have my mom, her organization recently set up, she now can log in to work from her phone. Like to get access into the building, she just has to put in the code on her phone and flash her phone and in she goes. So I'm like, wow, it's amazing. So it's something that, so long as it's used correctly, and like you said, the data integrity and all of that, but it's the way of the future. Like there's no way of getting around it, really.
Yeah, either. You have to embrace it. But it goes back also to, and thank you for that, all of you, Janine, communicating too, though, right? Because you can't, the biggest challenge I think is sometimes technology, it's implemented, but you need to have the change management around it, the communication, getting it so that you're comfortable with it, especially if it's new. And again, it'll be a generational thing. Sometimes people are more open, although I have to say, my daughter's not on Instagram and I am, so who knows? She's like, no, I waste too much time. The only thing we send each other usually is cooking recipes, so it's kind of fun. But thank you for that. I mean, obviously AI, artificial intelligence, tech, this is here to stay. People are continuously coming up with something next, and it's just trying to find the right ways to ensure there's still connection as well, but efficiencies, productivity, all great questions. So I think we're getting close to wrapping up. So Janine, I was going to, I think, ask you the next question on, because I know you have a passion on return on investment. So I'm wondering about how organizations can better measure all these things we've been talking about, right? The people programs and the impacts.
Yeah, so thank you for that. And I can see Sylvia smiling because we went through the measurement training over the last 10 years together and realized that if you want to have those important conversations with business leaders and be that trusted advisor, as Hilda, we had talked about. You need to be able to develop people and show evidence that the change in behavior actually impacts the business and builds revenue or reduces costs or whatever it is that they're trying to accomplish. We have to show evidence of that. And so what does that mean? So that means that any type of training solutions that I build, I start with the end in mind. So I start with, what does the success look like to you, Mr. Leader? So let's say it's an increase in, for example, a project that I worked on, we trained up 2,000 advisors on a new system. So Kadine, one of those things, we're implementing a new system because it's more efficient and it'll be better for the client. What does success look like? Well, we want the advisors to use the system, put new financial plans in place, and build revenue, because a financial plan equals new revenue for CIBC. So in order to prove that, we had to go back to build the training, deliver the training, show that people completed the training. But really, evidence of success of this program is, are there financial plans in the system? And are advisors putting new plans in, and are they increasing revenue? So it's not easy. It's a lot of work. And these are KPIs that I might not even have access to. But when you do have access to it, and when you can link it to your solution, it's a powerful story. I know that when we rolled out the training to 2,000 advisors, 6 months later, we were able to say there are 66,000 new financial plans in the system since the training launched. And what does every leader say? That's an incredible story, right? So now I'm bringing a lot of influence and credibility to a table. And I'm not doing anything different, but I'm speaking a different language, a language that makes sense to them. So I think it's important. But like I said, it's not easy. So I choose 1 or 2 a year to work on, lean into it because it's a lot of work, but it's worth it. It's worth driving that home. I rely on technology as well. So a lot of the feedback that we get to observe people's change of behaviors is through surveys, through crowdsourcing. And over the last 2.5 years with moving to an all virtual learning solution, we've really had to lean in on technology to help us build engagement with employees, hear their voice, get their feedback. So technology in the learning space has grown incredibly since we've moved into this virtual space. And I don't think it'll ever go away. I think that now that we're back in the classroom, we'll always have this hybrid experience. There'll always be people popping in. So we will need to continue to leverage technology to build engagement, gamification, a voice at the table. Everything that you think about in a classroom needs to happen all the time.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, and I mean, there's a lot when you're thinking, when we've all that we've talked about today, that's, so from a functional perspective, to try to really, it's about enhancing the organization capability. And, a lot of times in the past, it's been a challenge to implement programs because of the cost. But so you definitely, as a professional, someone influencing decision makers, you need to be able to get comfortable with the numbers and
Yes.
what that return is going to look like. So, even things like the employee health and wellness programs, like, well, how am I going to see that? There's always that hesitancy to put money in unless you know how you're going to measure and see the return. It's not easy. What about you, Kadine? What do you think on this? We're going to be wrapping up, and we'll just go over a little bit for whoever can stay. Yeah, I think it's a really important one.
Yeah, I'll keep it short because I think Janine just said it very well, but it starts with deciding on what is the framework, right? And I love what you said, Janine, you do have to start with the end goal in mind, but what are you designing and deciding on the framework, right? Creating that, and then it's identifying the metrics that you're going to associate with it to measure it. Right, it has to be measurable. the simple, acronym, the SMART acronym is that, get specific on what is the framework, and then is it going to be measurable? Is it attainable? Are you going to be able to achieve it in this time? And then is it timely? So it just goes back to basics for me with that, right? Deciding on the framework, and then figuring out how are you going to measure it or identify those metrics that are going to be attached to it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's a must, right? And it's just, I think Hilda and then Sarah will wrap up a little bit. We'll have some final thoughts after, but yeah, on this, like, how can you, Hilda, help create those metrics, and what are you seeing on how do you convince those organizations to do it and see what the return on investment would be?
I think more and more clients do want to see what is the return on investment. Oh, that sounds just lovely, but what does that mean? And so there's a qualitative side to that, but the quantitative side is more measurable, right, and visible. So one thing I will like, so I think people need to do that more, and have a mix of quality and quantity, qualitative, quantitative data, but also to, when they're doing the assessment, to also think about those measurable assessments from the employee's perspective. Too often it's from the company's perspective. And I'll just add one more ROI people need to think about, is that we don't need the travel costs that we used to have, because we are in a virtual world. So you can offset that by saying the budget we did spend 2 years ago on travel to get everybody into the hotels, etc. Now let's put into that. And I'm excited about including gamification into our tech world. Great discussion. I really enjoyed this great discussion that we've had today.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good point. What are the costs that you don't have anymore, and replace it with that investment in people? So Sarah, final thoughts, and then we'll see if anybody has another question or anything and wrap up.
Absolutely. I'll also keep this short.
Okay.
One of the return on investments that I really look into, which is a classic, is turnover reporting. Because I know that sometimes businesses measure ROI based off of sales or profitability. However, there's a lot of costs that go into recruitment and talent retention. So really focusing down on how those people programs are reducing the budget in terms of the turnover and the retention rates is really, really, really important. And I think that's one way that you can assist organizations in having a more healthy ROI, because it's all related. Without our people, there's no productivity and sales. So
Just love all the comments in the chat, and some others who have provided some input. So thank you. If you ever want to be on a future panel or a guest here at we do a monthly series. There's usually a theme, and I'd love to have others share their perspectives. Does anyone have just maybe one word? This is going to be hard. One word, just one word on what you took away from today, to take us into our day and the future. And I just want to again thank everybody that came, and thank all of our wonderful panelists. I really appreciate you taking the time to share all your knowledge with who's here and those who will watch later. So final word, and we'll start with Kadine.
Oh, wow.
Oh, see, I'm putting you on the spot now. Sorry.
I know. I'm like, can I have two? The first thing that comes to mind is innovation and inspiration.
Love it. Love it. Let's take that. And then how about you, Sarah?
I think wellness and empathetic leadership. I'll also pick too.
Oh, love it. Love it. Janine?
I think hope. I think we got hope again.
Yes. And what about you, Hilda?
Excitement for what HR can do.
I love it. Yeah. And I'll just wrap up with gratitude. Thank you. What a wonderful discussion. I just loved it. And I hope to see you all again soon. So have a wonderful day, and we'll hope to see you next month or in the future. And yeah, just keep at it. we need all of the passion here in this room. And everybody that came that I know has it as well. So thanks again, everybody. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye, guys. Bye.
Bye.